Hello to my friends in every corner of the world. It always amazes me how many people listen to the podcast. I mean, I think it's like 120 something countries we get downloads. And that is just absolutely stunning to me. And I'll bet almost everyone knows who our guest is today. Now, if you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that I have six rotating co hosts. But Paul Raitzer was supposed to be here today. He had a scheduling conflict. I thought, who would be fun to have on here? And I reached out to my dear friend, Gini Dietrich, who's literally a legend in the field of
Oh
public
boy.
relations, corporate communications, cycling, fashion.
No, not fashion. I
No,
won't take
no,
fashion.
that
Cycling, I'll
might be a
take.
reach. And
That's a
beyond.
reach.
Uh, so we're going to talk about Ginny today, about everything that's going on in her world. What an innovator! What a inspiring thought leader, and just a darn good person. And I want to remind you that our show is brought to you by Brevo, sort of an all-in-one CRM solution for your business. But boy, you can handle almost any kind of marketing activity there. And we talk about the importance of relationships in this AI world. And Brevo helps you make those customer relationships matter and engage new audiences while cultivating existing connections. There's no risk. You can try it for free. Go to brevo.com/marketing companion. Use the promo code companion to get 50% off your first 3 months. So, Ginny, it's just such a delight to see you. And I don't know if I ever told you this story. I hope that I
Oh
did.
no. Okay.
I hope that I did, because I tell this story all the time, because a lot of people look to me and say, "Oh, you're just you're this nice guy and you have this human presence." That is not a natural state for me. And when I started in the social media field, I was really struggling with coming across in a human way. And one year, I mean, this is like probably 13 years ago. You posted this little video of a family Thanksgiving dinner, and everybody was just waving at the camera, and you just wished
It was
everybody.
longer ago than that.
It was longer than that.
Yeah.
Oh, there sounds like there's a story there. But anyway, I just thought that was so warm. That was so inviting. Why can't I be like that? And it sort of started me on my journey. Did I ever tell you that story?
Oh.
I never did.
Uh-uh.
Yeah. So really, I mean, you sort of inspired me with this sort of human, accessible, friendly presence. I was just fresh off my corporate career. I was still in corporate pig dog mode. Whatever I was doing is nobody's
I love
business.
that.
And so Ginny changed my life. Truly changed my life.
I love that. And now you're posting pictures of the grandbaby, and it's
I
so
am. I
fun. It's
am.
so
Yeah.
fun.
Doggone, that baby is
So
sure.
fun.
So, let's start there.
Ah,
Let's
amazing.
let's start with how. So, you kind of threw in a little mention there that, oh, well, if it was the Thanksgiving dinner, it's probably a long time ago. But is social media, how are you using it
Oh,
different? How has it changed from the whatever it was, maybe 14, 15 years ago? I mean, you and I have been connected for a long, long time. You were probably one of my first social media connections, really. I mean,
I
how has
think
it?
I taught you how to take a selfie.
Yeah, you did.
I think I did.
I never took a selfie. Had never taken a selfie,
Yeah.
and I was beginning to think, like, what's wrong with me? And there is a lot wrong with me, actually, because I did this introspection about the psychology of the selfie. I actually wrote a blog post about it. Found out I am dysfunctional. So, but that's a story for another day. So, what's going on with you and your view of social media and the personal brand, social media and the brand for your clients?
Well, as you know, it's changed dramatically since the beginning. And I think in the beginning, it was very much, I think Margie Clayman just posted about this a few weeks ago. It was very much personal relationships. It was, we had the ability to reach people around the globe that we never would have had access to otherwise.
Yeah.
And we were
Right.
building relationships, and then we'd get together in person, like at Content Marketing World or Social Media Marketing World, or one of the big conferences, HubSpot, and we would. It was like we already knew each other because we had built these relationships
That's
online,
true.
and that doesn't exist today, which I think is really sad. And I think, in direct answer to your question, one of the biggest shifts that has happened for me is I'm now doing things that are a little uncomfortable for me, mostly to stay in contact with the younger generation. So I have nieces and nephews that range from 5 years old to 28, and so staying in contact with the teens and the post college, the 20-year-olds. I'm on Snapchat, which is not comfortable for me. And they send pictures of themselves all the time. I'm like, I don't want to send pictures of myself all the time. Like, it's weird, but that's what they do, right? Um, so that's uncomfortable. TikTok, I love to scroll through, but it's so uncomfortable to post stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So I find that I'm like second guessing or questioning the way that I approach social media today, and that I didn't do in the beginning.
Well, so a couple interesting things. Um, I, I I think the power of social media is still reach.
Yeah,
It's still reach. That's the main idea, probably. But the the process for that reach. I mean, I feel the same way as you. I've tried to have a presence on TikTok. I've dabbled on it a little bit, but I it and really I've got to be me. I mean, whether it works or not, but it's not fun. It's not
yeah,
it's not fun. I mean, in the early days when Twitter was still Twitter and a bird, I mean, boy, it just felt like this liberating kind of existence where anything was possible
yeah.
and you could just exchange ideas and build on ideas. And and then the world kind of got a little more fractured. But I think the solid idea with social media, I think from a business standpoint or a personal branding standpoint, is still reach, but the mechanism sure has changed.
Yeah, and I think it's harder to reach. The organic reach that we had back in the day was significant, and to get that kind
Yeah.
of organic reach today is almost impossible. You can still get it if you pay for it, but that organic reach is significantly more challenging today.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you had a comment recently that was so interesting and provocative to me. This was in one of your spin sucks pieces of content, and I highly recommend that you subscribe to the newsletter, subscribe to the podcast. Um, and what I mean, I think what you're probably most famous for, if I had to name your biggest contribution to the business world, is the PESO model. And you made a comment that talked about why this is newly relevant because attention behaves differently today. Wow, I love that. I love that. So if you could start at a high level for people who might not be familiar with this, because I said we've got people listening from all over the world. So talk a little bit about what is this signature model for you and your business, and then get into how it is newly relevant in this world where attention behaves differently.
Thank you, first of all. The PESO model is paid, earned, shared, and owned media. And I launched it in the book Spin Sucks in 2014. And I really did it. It was part of the manuscript from the perspective of thinking about the way that a communicator does their job differently, even back then. And, up until that point, well, up until social media became a thing, like 2008, 2009, PR and communications really had been crisis, reputation, events, media relations, like very specific things, right? And now we have social media and content and influencers and even some social media advertising. And, we have all of these other pieces that go into it. So in the book, I was talking about this ability to do more for our organizations and do more for our brands, and not only do more but to measure it in a way that we hadn't been able to measure brand awareness, which is what we were known for previously. And it took off. Like, I did not expect it to, in by any stretch of the imagination. And the funny story behind that all is I wrote the book, the first draft, and the publisher came back and said, is there a name for this thing here? And I was like,
Wow.
no, I'm just talking about like sort of what we do. And she's like, yeah, I think we should put a name to it. And so,
So is this
we were,
just to be clear for the audience, is this the Spin Suck book?
yeah, spin sucks.
Yeah, the Spin Suck book. Okay.
Yep.
So if people want to look into it, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's super old now, and
Yeah, but
we've completely iterated and evolved. But
yeah.
it's
We'll put a link
So
in the show notes.
we talked about, would we name it OESP, because I believe that owned media is the foundation for everything that we do. And then you might go to earned, or maybe you'd go to shared from there. So OSEP. And she and I went round and round and round, and I was like, you can't OSP or OSTEP. Like, you don't remember those things, right?
No.
So we said, can
PESO
we
it is.
name it PESO?
Yeah.
And so they went through the process of ensuring from a copyright perspective that I could call it that, since there's a currency also name that. And because it was a different industry and all that, we could. And then she came back and said, now we need a graphic. And it was like December 18th or 19th. And I just wanted to be done so I could go on vacation, go on holiday,
Yeah.
right? And so I said to our designer, I just need a graphic. And so the graphic was paid, earned, shared, and owned, a Venn diagram. And underneath each were tactics and tools. So like in the very first one, Vine was listed, Google Plus was listed, like stuff that doesn't exist anymore. And it was so tactical that that's what it was. It was a list of tactics. So that's how it started. Of course, it's evolved, right? And now it's much more strategic. There's some real science behind it. There's a lot of research behind it, and we can talk about that later. But when we think about that evolution and keeping time with how people's attention and the way that we make purchase decisions has changed during that time as well, it's really about, one of the things that we find is that people will take tactics from each media type and call it the PESO model, when in fact the real magic is the integration. And that's what they're not doing. They're not doing the integration. So the social team is over here posting great stuff on social with one message. And the PR team's over here talking to media relations and writing news releases with another message. And the paid team is doing creative, and they've got a different message. And your blog or your website has a completely different message. And so that messaging, because it's not integrated, it's fragmented, and the customer doesn't know what to do. So we force them to either do the extra work to find out what it is and whether or not they're going to buy, or they just don't, right? So when you think about attention and where you're reaching people, they're on social media, they're on TikTok, they're on YouTube Shorts, some people are still watching the nightly news, and some people are still reading newspapers. Some people are reading the trade publications. Some people don't do any of that. Some people just pay attention to what influencers are saying on social. Some people are reading Medium and Substack and LinkedIn. So it's really this evolution. And I think Axios about a year and a half ago said there are really 12 distinct places that people are getting information. How do we have a consistent message for each of those places, and how are we approaching each of those media venues?
So when you say attention is behaving differently, it's just because it's fractured. Would that sum it up well?
Yeah, I mean, it's completely fractured, right? And you talk about this too. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many things that take our attention, so many different things, and we're all victims of it, right? None of us can focus.
So what was the moment? So this was sort of like a thing in your book, and your editor encouraged you to codify it. What was the moment when you sort of owned it? because like I just throw out things I'll throw out ideas, I throw out models, and then I just move on to the next thing. But this has become a big part of your brand, a big part of your identity and your business. So like what was the moment when you thought, I got a tiger by the tail here. This is really part of my brand.
Tell you the honest story. I was at Content Marketing Worlds at the speaker's dinner, and I was standing in line at the bar, and a woman cut me off in line. And
Ah,
I was kind of like, and she turned around and she was like, I'm so sorry. I did not see you there. I really apologize. And like, she was so apologetic. And I was like, it's fine. You're fine. Like, we're all friends. It's totally fine.
sure.
Um, we got to the front of the line where drinks were free. And I said, can I buy you a drink? She said, let me buy you a drink since I cut you off. And it was Sharon Torek. And Sharon owns Legal and Creative, which is an agent or a law firm that works with intellectual property and copyright, especially for service providers. And she and I were talking about it. And she said to me, I've heard about this PESO model. And this was probably 2016, 2017. So it had been 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, a
And
couple
she
years.
said, I really think you should copyright this, and because it's your intellectual property. And I remember at the time thinking, that's an interesting idea, but I did it to give it to the industry for free. And she really just kept at me and kept at me and at me. And finally, I was like, all right, well, let's look at what this might look like. And so we provided it for free under Creative Commons, and you could use it. And now it's become such a thing that we decided in 2020 that we needed to, for lack of a better term, maintain more control over it,
Oh,
especially if
really?
we were going to start evolving it and keeping it up to date. Yeah. So, it's taught in universities, communicators and marketers use it. We work with huge brands to teach their internal team how to use it. So we needed to sort of get our arms around it a little bit
Yeah,
after the fact. And I think if I were to do it again, I would do all of that stuff up front. But it wasn't my
sure.
goal. That wasn't my goal in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, because I just put my IP out there, and it's funny how like some of my ideas become part of the language, and someone will ask me a question about something that I kind of like. Oh, Mark, have you ever heard of this thing called Content Shop? This is an interesting idea. I'd like to hear your comments on it. And but I don't care really. I mean, I don't really care. So that was interesting. That was unique. Well, we had a catch up last week, I guess it was,
Yeah.
because we just hadn't seen each other in such a long time, and you were telling me about some of the very interesting and innovative things you were doing with AI, and I was talking to someone the other day, Judy, and they're talking about reinventing themselves and like what's their career going to be. And I thought and thought and thought about what they're doing now, what they need to do. And I just blurted this out. I said, just everything is AI. Just everything is AI. Everything we're imagining, everything we're starting, everything we're doing somehow is taking on this AI flavor. Uh, so, uh, so how is this impacting you and your clients today? What are some of the interesting things you're working on?
It's been really interesting because clients either love it or they hate it. And I think that's the case with people, right? Like people either really want to glom onto it or they don't. And so for the clients that are a little more innovative, like we have one client that their CEO has such grace and such a presence, but he's so highly introverted that he will not go on video. I can't get him on video to save my life. He would be so good on video and he won't do it. So just screwing around one night, I created an AI clone of him and I sent it to him. And I used 11 Labs and HeyGen and I combined them together. And I sent it to him and I said, what do you think of this? And he goes, that's me. And I'm like, what is it? And he was like, wait, what? So we figured out a way to get him on video without actually having to get him on video. It's still his likeness and the words he's using and all that. And we certainly disclose, we're like, this is AI. But it's an interesting way to do it. And then we have some clients who are like, you can't absolutely cannot use it even to brainstorm on behalf of our work. You can't use it at all. So there's a big, wide gamut of interest for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking with I don't know if you know Matthew Sweezy or not, but he's one of my co-hosts, and he is working on AI kind of marketing integrations with big brands. And one of the things he mentioned a few weeks ago is that the floodgates have kind of opened. um, you know, about a year or so ago, like I was hearing sort of what you're saying, is that a lot of the brands were saying, no, there's this legal gray area. I just don't know what's safe. We've got too much to risk and too much to lose. And I mean, they are just like saying go. So it's interesting that we're kind of in this transition period. It seems.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think a lot of these legal issues, they've got to be solved soon.
I think they will be. And I think there's enough going on externally just from that perspective that will help. You know, we were talking the other day about disclosures and how you disclose. Do you disclose to a journalist or to your client that you use ChatGPT to help you create an outline for an article? Maybe,
Yeah,
maybe not. There's all these
yeah.
lawsuits. I think Microsoft's in a lawsuit right now over Copilot scraping content from some of the publishers, right? So I think some of that will get solved in the next few months. But
Yeah,
the horse is out of the gate. We're not putting it back in. That's for sure.
right. That's for sure. Yeah, that's for sure. And are you? I mean, can you talk about some of the unique AI things you're building in your business, or is that top secret?
Where we created a PESO model GPT, which has been super fun. Um, I kind of wish I could get access to the data, which they won't give you access to it because I would love to see what people are asking and what kinds of
I
information
know,
it's,
right?
yeah,
You
yeah,
can't
that'd
even
be
see how many
really,
times it's really being used. It's
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I would love that, but we're not there yet. Maybe we'll get there. So
yeah,
that was sort of the catalyst creating that. And that was just me tinkering. Creating that was a catalyst to some of the work that we're doing with big brands where they've said, here's our AI steering committee, work with them to create something private for us. And so I just actually just did a speaking engagement with Sun Life Financial, and they have their own AI called Sun Life Asks, which is internal, and it's the GPT essentially that they created internally that their employees can use to get information. So they're not using ChatGPT or Copilot or one of those. They've actually created their own. And I think that's where you'll start to see organizations going is where they've
yeah.
created their own AI to scrape and bring information, but then it's walled off. So it's not the LLMs aren't using that information to learn.
Sure. Well, for mere mortals like Ginny and I, this is a business idea. We would like an interface that sits on top of a custom GPT where we can record who's using it, how long they're using it, and what questions are asked. And I mean, you could be
Yes, please.
transparent. You could be transparent about that. But if you can build that, or if you know someone who has, send me a note. I'll send you an autographed copy of my new book if you could just help us, because that's a heck of a good idea.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It would be great. It would be and it can't be that hard. It just can't be that hard.
Well,
So
everybody has access to data in other ways, right? So
yeah,
why, and the data's there,
yeah. And I mean, like we built the thing. We should be
right?
able to harvest some
Some information.
intel,
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
intel off of that.
Right.
Um, Yeah, but so to wind up here, I thought this would be a fun question to ask you. You know, in my new book, one of the themes I saw was how people were breaking through the noise by breaking bad rules for good reasons. What's a bad rule in PR that drives you nuts that we ought to be breaking?
Uh, Everybody measures success with media impressions and advertising equivalencies. Bad,
Yeah,
bad, 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 bad
bad
ones.
web, yeah.
Please stop doing
Media,
that.
yeah, media impressions, yeah. Yeah, that is one thing, actually, yeah, that's yeah, and I'll add to that, web traffic.
Yes, yes.
Oh, boy,
And follower counts. Yes.
it's really become an anachronistic model that's still probably the number one measurement for
Uh-huh.
95% of the companies out there, but
Uh-huh.
that's
It means
also
nothing.
yeah, that's also, uh, another story for
It is.
another day,
Yes.
and we'll just have to leave it at that. So, Ginny, it's been absolutely a delight to see you and to hear from you and to catch up on all your latest ideas and innovations. And where can people find you? What's your favorite website to send people to?
Spinsucks.com.
Spinsucks.com. We loved it. We trusted it 15 years ago. We love it and we trust it today. So thanks everyone for joining us today. We'll see you next time on The Marketing Companion.